Here is day 1 of Taco's VFX tutorials, and for this video we will be talking about the basics of the particle emitter. So first of all, we have the color setting of the particle emitter. This is really important to know about if you don't want hella boring white VFX. When you click on the little color thingy, a palette of colors will pop up. These can all be used for your little baby particle emitter. You might also want to make your little baby particle emitter emit some light and shine when times are so dark. This is where light emission comes in. More light emission equals more light, less equals less light. Then we have light influence. This setting can make particles a bit more interactive with their environment, as if you have more light influence, more of a shadow will be cast on them when in a dark spot, like at night or under something, but this is really only useful if you are like making falling leaves. Yeah, most of the time I just keep the setting at 0. Next we have brightness. This setting might be a little bit tricky for some beginners to find because you need to set the light influence to something below 1 to find it, but that's alright because we already pointed it out, right guys? Anyways, brightness can come in handy if you want to make something bright AF since light influence has some limits/downsides. Alright y'all, now we have a bit more complicated of a setting. Orientation. This setting lets you set how the particle faces. Face camera world up faces the screen unless you are above/below the particle. Velocity parallel is similar to face camera world up, however the below/above is set to the path of the particle instead of down/up. Velocity perpendicular is a cool one, because it faces the path of the particle instead of the camera, which can be useful for making some particles that you want to be more flat. The size setting should be self-explanatory. However, for you silly geese who don't know what it is just a setting for how big you want the particles to be. The squash setting should also be self-explanatory, but I get it if you don't know since it is a bit different. Squash makes particles get squished on either height-wise, negative, or width-wise, positive. The texture setting is very useful since it is needed to change particles from the default texture. I will show you a good way to find textures in a later video, but a really basic way is to just change the word sparkle in the texture ID to something like fire or smoke, since it will get the job done for now. The transparency setting should be self-explanatory, but whatever, I'll tell you what it does. So the transparency setting makes your particles either more or less transparent, that is literally it. Bro, okay, what happened with my voice? OMG, like on my mama this mic is bugging. Next we have the Z offset setting. This setting is really important since it makes particles not clip with other particles, but I will tell you about that later. But for now, I will just tell you that it makes particles go in front, positive, or in back, negative. The emission direction should really be self-explanatory, so just watch the video to find out what it does. I do not feel like saying all that for something obvious. The enabled setting literally just makes the particle emitter either disabled, or enabled. Be glad I even talked here. The lifetime setting just makes the particle's existence time either longer, or shorter. The rate setting is just how much you want the particle emitter to emit its particles. I wouldn't recommend spamming 1000 rate particles since that might lag people. I low-key want to take a small break, so just watch the video to see what the next 3 settings do. Alright, I'm back. Had to go to the bathroom, you know. Anyway, so spread angle is just a setting that affects the spread of the particles. It is pretty self-explanatory if I do say so myself. The shape setting just changes the shape that the particles emit out of. Cylinder acts kind of weird, but it is probably just me who thinks that. The shape in out setting just is for more editing of the shape's emission direction. I don't really see why you would use anything out of it other than the in and out one, since you can literally just make the speed negative/positive. The shape partial setting is how much of the shape you want the emitting particles to take up. The shape style is pretty unique because if you set the setting to surface, it will just emit on one plane of the shape instead of the full shape. The flipbook setting is a bit advanced, so like just ignore it for now, pretend it doesn't exist. Acceleration makes the particles accelerate on either the x-axis, the y-axis, or the z-axis. Pretty cool, right? You can use it to make particles look like they are affected by gravity. We are almost done. The drag setting is a pretty useful setting since it can slow down particles, making it look like they are affected by air resistance. However, you can also use drag to speed up particles in their already set path, by making the drag negative. The lock to part setting is pretty self-explanatory, so just watch me do it. It is pretty self-explanatory if I do say so myself. The last one I will cover today is the timescale setting. This setting affects how slowed down the particle is. For example, 0.5 timescale will double the particle's lifetime, but make the speed and rate 1/2 of the original.